Hello everyone, my name is Lacey, this is Lieutenant Dan, and you are watching Reptiles. So today is a beautiful day here in Missouri. We love it, the sun is out, the clouds are out, there's no more hail damage today. Woo woo. We had like a bunch of storms and stuff go through earlier this week, and it was pretty crazy. It was pretty wild. Like an emu at the zoo died, which is super sad, and because she was like 21, like a 21-year-old emu. So sad. Not the topic of today's video, but still, rest in peace to the emu, you know? But today, I'm actually going to talk to you about something someone asked me about at work the other day, which is the benefits of feeding your snake in their enclosure versus out of their enclosure. Now, I know several years ago, people at pet stores would say, oh, don't feed your snake in the enclosure because it'll make them aggressive. Take them out of the enclosure, feed them, and then put them back in. Now, the way we keep snakes has changed over the years, and the wisdom now seems to be a lot closer to just feed your snake in their enclosure and just make sure they're properly socialized. Because this idea of them being cage aggressive comes from the idea that if you only open your cage to feed your snake, then every time you open your cage, their cage, they're gonna think, oh, food time, and they'll see your hand and be like, oh, food, num 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 num. Daniel obviously does not do that. See, I can go like this and go yum yum yum, and he's fine because he knows I'm not food. Now, I feed Lieutenant Dan and all my snakes in their enclosures. I fed them all the other day, and Daniel is just finishing up digesting his tasty little rattykins. And I have not had any issue with cage aggression, nor has anyone I know that has been feeding their snakes in their enclosure. Because we make sure we properly socialize our snakes. Now, if the only time you ever take your snake out or open your snake's cage is to feed them, then yes, they might become cage aggressive and only associate that with food because snakes are very smart. But as long as you're taking your snake out like once a week, you're good, right? Because you're not feeding them every day, and you're also not handling them every day. So if you handle them slightly more than you feed them, you're good. Now, snakes can do something called target training, and I know Bob Bledsoe, he does this with his snakes, and he has many videos that you can watch on how to target train your snake. But basically, target training, what it is you have your snake of choice, and then you have some sort of colorful paddle, like blue or green, some sort of paddle that they can see. You introduce it to their cage before you feed them. When they acknowledge the target, then they get their food. And then they start to associate that target with their food. So they know if they see that target, then they're gonna get fed. Frog Family in Springfield, they do something similar. They use like a red target for their lizards. And I did not know that because one day I went in wearing a red shirt, and all the lizards, I was there, oh, they were chasing me around. They were like following me in their enclosures. They were wanting me to feed them because I was wearing a red shirt, and they associate that with food. So long as you are not your target, then you're good. But just keep on socializing them, keep hanging out with your snake, be their homeboy or homegirl, as it were, and just feed them like you normally would. If you're concerned about it or have a very food-motivated snake, something like a retic, a dwarf retic, berm, like a black-headed python woma, any of those kind of more food-aggressive snakes that are going to be like, I like food, motivate me with my food, then try the target training, and they won't be quite so quick to lunge when you open their enclosure to feed them. Now, one of the downsides to taking them out of their enclosure to feed them and then putting them back in is it stresses out your snake a lot. And eating food is already a big enough stress for your snake, because when a snake is eating and when they're digesting, their whole body kind of goes through a change, which is kind of cool. Like their heart will enlarge, some of their organs kind of enlarge to take up that extra strength, and it puts a big strain on their bodies, as well as, going through the effort of physically eating the prey item. And taking them out, putting that back in, moving them around, that just introduces a whole new level of stress that you don't want to deal with and your snake doesn't want to deal with either. Like, can you imagine, like, you're going out to Thanksgiving and you eat a big Thanksgiving meal, and then you come home and then someone wants you to go out and play and run around and do all this activity, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna burst. It's kind of like that for snakes, and there's the chance and the risk that they will regurgitate their food item. And snakes aren't like you or me. They can't just like throw up and then just be like, well, crap, I'm gonna drink some milk and carry on with my day. No, they have much, much stronger stomach acids than we do, because they break down the whole prey item. They break down bone, hair, everything to get their tasty food. And when they regurgitate their prey item, it can cause a lot of damage to their esophagus, to their food tube. And if they regurgitate, you're going to want to wait, 2-3 weeks before you can even try to feed them again. And they will have missed out on that tasty, nutritious rat that you just fed them. So that's a big concern with doing that feeding outside of their enclosure. So I don't think I can't really think of too many benefits to taking your snake out and moving them to a separate container. I can't think of too many benefits to that method of feeding. I only know that, it causes a risk of stress to your snake and can lead to them throwing up their meal, which is not good for your animal, for their happiness, for their well-being. So just get yourself, oh, I'm sorry, I bumped you. I'm sorry, friend. Get yourself a good pair of feeding tongs and just feed them in the enclosure. Keep an eye on where their head is. Do nose to nose, and chances are you're gonna be fine. And with the snakes that I keep, they're not exactly lunging to get food. Now, Sekhmet and John Cena, they're both boids, sand boa and a boa constrictor. And boas are known for their food response. They're very food motivated. They love to eat. They love their food. But even so, with that, I don't have that problem, because Sekhmet, I kind of have to find her in her enclosure first, because she's hiding. So once I find her, I'm like, hey girl, I got food, and she's like, oh yeah, I don't care that you bug me. Oh, hi Sylvester. And John Cena, she'll just kind of wait for you to bring the food to her. She'll perk up, and she'll know it's there, and she'll start kind of putting that S shape to her head and her neck. But she will wait till the food is right in front of her, and then. And I have not had any issue with any of my snakes giving me a food response, or a bite for a food response, thinking I am food. And I have only ever fed them in their enclosures. So that is my recommendation to all of you, is when you feed your snake, do so inside their enclosure. Make sure that, you personally do not smell like rats. So if you're handling the rats beforehand, maybe wash your hands before you grab them up with your tongs or whatever you use to feed them, so that you're not mistaken for a tasty rat, because you're the right temperature. And if you're the right temperature and you smell like food, maybe you're food. So just handle your reptiles safely and responsibly, keep them socialized and used to people, and feed them in their enclosure, and you'll have a happy, healthy snake. That is all I have for you today, folks. I hope you learned something about feeding your noodle friends. And as always, never stop learning, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. See ya!